right, that's better. Thank you. My name is Terry Diamond. I am your host for today's seminar, and I really appreciate everybody coming. We have a full house, so that's what we love to see because we have so much great information to share with everybody. Before we begin, a few housekeeping items on the table in front of you. You'll find my brochure. So the new brochure for 2024 is finally here. It's only March. I'm a couple months late, but it's there. And yes, as Chris is pointing out, it still has my old picture because I had headshots and I didn't like the new ones. So this is who I am. My hair was a lot more blonde those days. So you can just pretend I'm one of the people on the front. But it has all the new information for the seminars. Now, last month I handed out a paper copy of the seminars, and thank you to all the eagle-eyed people we have here. Noticing that November seminar was on the third Tuesday. It is not, it's only on the second Tuesday. October seminar is the only one that is changed to the third Tuesday because I will be at my conference. So second Tuesday every month, always here, 10 o'clock for breakfast, 10:30 for the program. So mark your calendars, I'd love to see you all here. So you have the brochure, you have note paper, you have pins, and most importantly, the seminar survey at the bottom of the pile. So the good news is everybody that fills one out completely, I put in a drawing for one $50 gift card. The other good news is when you fill them out honestly and completely and give me feedback, it only continues to help grow the seminars. Make them better for you, make them better for me. So please, honest feedback, whatever you want to write on there, feel free. You'll notice it's a new survey again. 2 new things. How many times have you been here? And one thing that's been working out really well is asking for a coffee date with me. It can be coffee, it can be breakfast, it can be dinner, it can be cocktails, whatever you want. Several people in the room have taken advantage of it. It's really, I see everybody nodding their heads, it's a great thing for you and for me. And it's whatever you want to talk about. Okay, it can be talking about your pets, it can be talking about real estate, it can be talking about trust, it can be talking about assisted living, or just saying hi. It doesn't matter. It gives you the opportunity to meet with me and me the opportunity to meet with you and develop that relationship. It's really a great thing and I've been loving them. Just really beneficial for everybody. So circle that you'd like a coffee date and I'll set up appointments. What else? Please turn off your phones. And if you need the restrooms, they're out the door to the right. A little bit about me. Most of you know me. For those that you don't, my name is Terry Diamond. I am a realtor. And you wonder why a realtor is hosting the presentations. Okay, this is not about real estate. It's not about sales. It's not about getting you to do anything you want to do or don't want to do. I am a certified senior housing professional. It takes many months of education and research. I'm one of 7 realtors in California who is a certified senior housing professional. Education, advocacy, and real estate is how I run my business. Having these seminars is a great way to get the word out about a lot of things that A, we don't know about, like for me, today's seminar is going to be so exciting because it's all new information, or B, things we need to talk about. So the Dining Grace Death Doulas today, next month, we're having a fitness and nutrition, and in May, after tax season, we're having a shut-in event. So in your brochures, you have the whole calendar. Please RSVP, let me know that you're coming so I can plan appropriately. And I hope to see you all again here. I mean, we have so many regulars. How many here have been to at least 2 or 3 seminars? Okay, 4 or 5? 8 or 10? Okay, 12? Yeah, and I really appreciate everybody coming again and again. I love it. Our goal today is to educate you on what an end-of-life doula is. Has anybody heard of them before? Okay, surprising. I'd never heard of them before I met Arlene. End-of-life doulas are a new and emerging field and have a lot to offer in understanding and preparing for death. In Santa Barbara, we're lucky enough to have a team of trained and experienced doulas, and there's one at every table. I should say at least one at every table. They've joined us. And they provide their services for free. Or as Arlene will tell you, what is it that you say?
Donations accepted.
Donations accepted. So it's a great service. We're not here, once again, we're not here to sell you anything or make you do anything, but if any of us can be of service, we're happy to do so again. I do record the seminars. They're up on my YouTube channel. I send it out to everybody that has attended. I also want to take a special moment and introduce Luciana. She was here last month doing our Alzheimer's presentation, and many, many of you mentioned that it was the best seminar that you've ever been to. So thank you again to Luciana. We're going to go to about noon or whenever questions run out. So anybody have any questions? Yeah? Okay, we're going to try to hold questions till the end of the presentation. You have no paper on your table to write down any questions that pop up while you're listening to the speakers. So it helps keep the flow if we save all of our questions till the end. Let's get started. So it's my pleasure to introduce Arlene Stefatat from Dying in Grace, and she's going to start off the presentation first by introducing all of the doulas, however it runs. I'll let her deal with it. So thank you so much for coming. Arlene,
Thanks.
it's all yours.
Thank you.
Well, first off, let's give Terry a round of applause for what she does for us in this community. I mean, I attend because I learn. And so thank you for that, Terry, for all you do for us. I am delighted to see a full room because usually when I tell people I'm a death doula, they go to a bar at a party and run away from me. And so part of our intention today is to have an open conversation about all aspects of death and dying. I don't know about you, but I come from a long history of dead people. I don't know if that's happened to you or not. And what's interesting is they've done the research, and 100% of us are going to die. Okay? It's conclusive. So part of what we want to do is normalize and talk about the process before, during, and after an illness or a death. The fact that you're here tells me that you are brave. You're brave because other people, oh, death, no, I'm not going to that one. Yeah, I'll do the cluttering thing, or I'll do the shredding. I don't want to go to the death talk. So, and I think what's really true is that Woody Allen called it for all of us. And his famous line is, it's not that I'm afraid of death, I just don't want to be there when it happens. So we want to encourage you to be there with yourself and with your loved ones because it can be an actually beautiful, sacred experience. And many of you may have already had that experience. So let me introduce the doulas, and then I'm going to tell you what's going to happen next. So at this table over here, we have Jennifer Miller, if you raise your hand. The next table over is Stacy McCrory. You'll be hearing from her and her expertise. Next table over is Robin Martinelli. This table is the lucky table with two. So we have Vicki Pritchard, who is also bilingual, and Lee Hoyt. In front of me is my dear friend Dana Vandermeer. They're all my dear friends. I mean, and Dana also speaks Spanish. So we have two bilinguals and 5 of you, and here's 5 others. So here's what's going to happen. In just a few minutes, we're going to play a game. Yes, a game about death. Can you imagine? I can't wait for it to be on TV. So each one of your doulas has a little card game, and it's optional to answer the question if you want to. We're going to just give you a taste of it. We just have a few minutes. So just for a second, find out, just say what your birth date is. Go around the table and find just the date, not the year, we don't care about the year, just the date, like on December 9th. So just find out at your table whose birthday is coming next. So just by who's close to today.
What's your name? This is Sarah.
Okay, so we have it, do we know? So if your birthday is the next one coming, raise your hand.
Raise your hand.
Happy birthday, the person on your right gets to go first. So, okay, so Doulas, we're just gonna take it away and invite people to pick a card, answer it, and Jennifer will give you a high sign. We're just gonna do this for about 5 minutes, 5-7 minutes, okay. I got the cards. You get the cards.
Not sure, but it's at least good entertainment for some good entertainment value. Or no, they deliver nothing but fictitious news. Alrighty, not sure, but at least it's good for some entertainment value. They left some And how was that? Furry family members, yes.
That's amazing. Let's get nice hair. And 10 words or less.
I've lost several cats. I'm a cat lady, and I've lost several. They're buried in my
Okay,
backyard.
so we'd like to refocus. We know we couldn't get everybody to do it. How many people had fun doing this? Right? Like, and so you can go say, hey kids, I got a new card game. It's called the Death Den. And you can get it on Amazon. And we'll leave it on the research table so you can see it. How many of you had somebody ask you a question that you have never given much thought to? Yeah, so that's part of what this is to stimulate the conversation, to start to have that conversation. And I just want to say a small plug, if you enjoy talking about all aspects of death and dying, like I do, Santa Barbara is lucky enough to have what's known as a death cafe. It's free, it's in the community, it meets every 6 weeks, and the next meeting is tomorrow at 3:30. So if you're curious about that, come find me at the end, but it's important to have these conversations before death is staring you in the face, except what I want to tell you is the truth is we all have an expiration date and none of us can read it. So that assumption that just because we're gray-haired and older is that we're next, it doesn't always work that way. So it's good to get your paperwork in order and get your conversations going from from youth. How we work with young people about death and dying and reintegrating it back into the cycle of life, the circle of life is really the goal going forward. So we've talked about end-of-life doulas. Some of you have heard about end-of-life doulas. So what is it? So end-of-life doulas provide non-medical support. That's really important. We don't do anything medical. And we do guidance to individuals and their families. So if you are aware of how a hospice works, medical hospice, the patient is in the center, and around that is the support group, and then there's circles and circles of care. Doulas also do that. We start with the patient and their needs and wishes and desires, and we also work in a circle to support the family members, whether they're here or long distance, to plan, to have conversations just like this. So here's the thing I want to say. You could use a doula right this minute if you want to have a conversation with your kids about what your wishes are. It's not an easy conversation to have sometimes, but with a third person in there, it becomes, or we bring our playing cards and you'd be surprised what can happen. So that is what doulas do. It's important to understand we do nothing medical. We are not caregivers. We have a unique skill set of what we do. Other direction. That's okay. So overall, what we do is we are empowering individuals and families to make choices, to not leave it to the last minute. How many of you have ever been in a situation where somebody died suddenly and people didn't know what the person wanted, whether they wanted to be buried, right? So it's like it's guessing. It's guessing. And you're in shock, or even if the death was anticipated, there's a lot to plan. So one of the best things you can do is give your family your wishes, to talk about death and dying, normalize it, and make plans so that when your passing comes, you can actually die in grace. That's kind of our goal. So we have a lot of tools and ideas for planning and decision making, and each one you're going to hear about what we do in just a minute. We offer individualized support based on your physical needs, your mental needs, your social, emotional, your cultural needs. So we meet you and your family exactly where you are. We do not have an agenda for you. We do not have a place we're taking you to. We are there to offer our expertise to listen. Now that's a gift, isn't it? Mm-hmm. How often do we really get listened to, especially about something this deep? I don't know about you, but like I said, I tell somebody I work with death and dying and they shut me down and go get a drink, so. And we also have that time for listening. So all the doulas here are trained. We have years and years of experience. And you know, if you think back about it, and no offense to the guys in the room, but historically women have always done this. We have always taken care of the person who's sick. We've always birthed the babies. We've always been the caregivers. And we've always been at the bedside. This is a long, ancient tradition that's coming forward again. We're taking it back, and my idea is the boomers who changed everything, of which I am one. We changed everything: sex, drug, rock and roll, women's lib, civil rights, all those things. Now we're taking back the way we die. We're taking it back from medical field, not that we don't use the medical field, but we take it back so it's individualized and purposeful. So to talk about what we do, so remember we do before, during, and after. So to talk about what you can do before you even have a diagnosis, I want to introduce my friend Dana Vandermeer, and she's going to talk to you about documents and planning.
Thank you, Arlene. So the before part, there is care planning that you can do, and there is documentation that you can have written down your wishes. So advanced care directives and PULST are a couple of the documents. I'm going to talk about a total of 5 of them. Discussing end-of-life wishes, as Arlene mentioned, with your family and friends. It's very important, and you can get, you know, the death deck game and start talking with your family that way, or however you want to bring up the subject. Now, I'm all about that, so I've done that with all my family, and they got the documents in their stockings. Even though they're all adults, they get Christmas stockings every year, and I put advanced directives in one year, I put organ donation cards in, and next year, last will and testament documents, guardianship, because I have 7 grandchildren. I want to make sure they're well taken care of in case their parents passed away. And my kids looked at me, they go, "What's next?" And I said, "We're having a document party." So the day after Christmas, everybody brought their documents, and we started working on them and talking. And so my family knows how I feel about death and dying, and I'm very straightforward, pragmatic, and I said, it's time for us to all get our documents done, and I want you to hear about my wishes. And as my thoughts and my wishes change, I bring it out to my family. And when I go through each of these documents, it's a good idea to not just do it, get it done, and forget about it. It's good to go back and review them. So advanced directive and advanced care planning is that opportunity to let your family, your friends, and your medical care providers know how you feel. So when you do the documents, obviously you have to make copies and have good discussions with your providers so that they hopefully are on the same page as you are. It's especially important to do this if you cannot speak for yourself. So even though you may have talked to all your family members, you need to put it in writing so it's there for everyone to read and understand. And then advanced directives are a gift that you give yourself, but it's a gift that you give your family. So I would like to talk to you about now the different documents. Next slide, please. Okay, the durable power of attorney for healthcare is probably one of the first iterations of the document. If you have ever gone to an attorney to do your last will and testament or a family trust or planning for your future as far as how your possessions would be divided up, that's how a lot of people got in touch with, oh yes, there's the durable power of attorney for healthcare as well as legal and financial. So if you happen to do that with your attorney a while back, good, but guess what? There's some other documents that have come since then, and we encourage you to look at that. So 5 wishes, that was probably the biggest, I would say, step in advanced care planning. And I have a document I can show you what it looks like. I did my 5 wishes with my husband and I've redone this 3 times because I changed my mind. It's in 5 different domains. It's more than just saying, do I want CPR? Do I want any other life-sustaining treatments? It can also leave space for you to determine if you would like to have a funeral, a memorial service, or nothing at all. So this is the document that came out many years ago, but we've advanced now. We have one called My Care. And we have copies of that here if you would like to look at them. This is the iteration of the 5 wishes. It's less bulky, I would say. It's easier. Cottage Hospital with attorneys and doctors put this document together, and that's mainly what we're using here now in Santa Barbara. So if you have not done any advanced care planning, I would encourage you, especially after today, to highly consider it, and you can certainly use us to help you fill it out. Hospices Santa Barbara, which I've been affiliated with for many years, also has this document, and they do workshops around Santa Barbara. So if you are interested in having that done, we can either hook you up with one of us or let you know when hospice is going to be having this, and they call Get It Done. So, get it done. I would strongly encourage you, everybody over the age of 18 needs to consider this and get it done. So if you have questions about that later, write it down. We'll be happy to talk to you about it. The other document is something called a POST. Looks like this. And it stands for Physicians Ordered, yes, okay, Physicians Ordered for Life-Sustaining Treatment. This has to be filled out with your physician and signed. Encourage people to do this if you live alone. If you have a chronic or a life-threatening illness, imperative that you get this done, and it should coincide with your other documents. It should be the same, because if it's different, then you need to take a real good look at it. You can get these, make copies, make sure your physician has one, put it on your refrigerator. So should a paramedic ever come to your home, they'll look for that and they'll know what your wishes are. So if you don't want to have life prolonged with CPR and other life-sustaining treatments, this is a good document to fill out and have it very visible to the paramedics. The last one, Advanced Directive for Receiving Oral Fluid and Foods. This is the newest thing for folks that have dementia. And I strongly encourage you that if anybody in your family or yourself, you're starting to wonder about your memory, you can have these filled out so that you would not have your life prolonged in case of dementia by being force-fed. It's very controversial, I think, with some people, but the document does exist, and if you want to see copies of it, I happen to have it. And I filled mine out because I told my family, if I have dementia, I do not want to be sustained, so don't force feed me.
You don't have to go by that if you have that filled out.
Yes, your doctor, it is legally binding, and yes, your doctor has to, but again, it's a good thing to talk to your doctor and your family about, because people may not all agree. And I had to have a discussion with my husband about it because he didn't agree with me, but I said, please don't do it. And the way you can figure that out, if you put champagne and a piece of chocolate in front of me, and I make no motion to take that, that's my favorite food, then just call it a day, pull the plug, I'm gone. So I need to now turn it over to my colleague Lee Hoyt, who will carry on the conversation here. So Lee.
That's a new idea to me, the champagne and chocolate, but I'm definitely going to use it. Yeah. When you think about it, end of life is really our last great opportunity for personal growth. And so we are lucky to be working in this area. I know I've learned an enormous amount from every single person, every family, every individual that I've worked with. Can everybody hear?
Yeah, if you hold it close.
Okay, good. Once there's a terminal diagnosis, see where we are here. Good, okay. Once there's a terminal diagnosis, doulas can create a safe and comfortable space for individuals and families to explore the tasks of what we call conscious dying. There are tasks and there are opportunities. The tasks that doulas might support at end of life are healing relationships, might help an individual make phone calls or write letters, ask for forgiveness, offer forgiveness, say thank you, say I love you. We work with families, with individuals in life review of various sorts, oral, written, etc. I've worked quite a bit with individuals who want to create an ethical will. How many people have heard of an ethical will? Okay. It's basically a document that is created to have a record of your life learnings, your values, and your philosophy of life for your family to hand down to the children that you may not have met. We also work on creating legacy projects. This could be a memory box, a quilt. It could be a collection of stories or photos, a portfolio of art, recordings of music or poetry. And another thing that we do is to work with families in creating a vigil plan. Vigil is something that many religious traditions incorporate, whether that's bedside care for the dying or a vigil after death for visitation. We work with families to plan that. Where, for example, in a vigil plan, where would you like to be in your last days? Who would you like to be surrounded by? What would you like pets? Would you like music? Would you like flowers? Would you like open window and bird song? It's really a very interesting and comforting process to make a vigil plan. Okay, next slide. So we support the loved ones and the caregivers, and we support hospice and palliative care. We're really part of the continuum of care. We know that many medical services are understaffed, and we have, as Arlene referred to, the luxury of time for deep listening at times of critical need. And we also can help families facilitate visitation. Next slide, please. This is an example of a display that a family put together for a visitation. Photographs, favorite poetry, a book. Actually, I think it was Vigil, because there's a book there of poetry and a book of prayers for the person who's sitting silently, maybe through the night, to read and reflect in the presence of their loved one. Next slide, please. Let's organize. So after, we coordinate with hospice and the funeral homes about perhaps delivery of a casket or a shroud or and transportation issues. And we guide after death care of the body, including home funeral and green burial. It's become, as Arlene mentioned, much more common for families to direct end-of-life care. And it's become more common for individuals to bathe their loved ones after they've died. How many people have heard of that or have known someone who's done that? Yeah. Yes, it's becoming much more common. And it is, of course, a return to traditional practices of all of our ancestors. We support families, guide them, but empower them to do this in any setting that is called home. That could be an apartment, could be assisted living, could be a hospice facility, it could be a hospital room. Bathing the body, blessing of the body. If the family wants to have their loved one at home after death, we can help support that with supporting them in hygienic body care, dressing, cooling the body with either dry ice or Techni ice, and creating sacred space for lying in honor. Green and eco-friendly burial is something that we are involved in advocating for, and I noticed that all of the funeral homes in the area advertise that they support this. How many people know what green burial is? Great, okay. So, not surprising in an area where people are so concerned about their beautiful environment.
Excuse me, what is it?
Oh, okay, so I was going to go ahead and so green burial involves no embalming and use of only clothing and container, if a container is used, that will break down in the soil, have direct contact with the soil. It can be in a hybrid cemetery where there's an area devoted to green burial, which means that there won't be any grave liner. Grave liners are really only necessary so that the ground won't cave in and make it difficult to mow the grass. So it really isn't required, and it doesn't aid in preserving the body in any way. It involves a casket made of simple wood, or woven grasses, or wrapping a body in a shroud or a quilt, something like that. And there can be conservation burial, which means that the land is in preservation, or there can be just green burial in a green burial cemetery, or as I said, in a hybrid cemetery where an area is devoted to that. If you're interested in green burial issues, you can talk to us later and we can tell you about where they are nearby. If you can go to the next picture. On the left is a photograph of helping a family with a home funeral. We have questions at the end, if you don't mind, okay? And we're using Techni-Ice there, and you can see it's a very comfortable environment. There's the brother-in-law and a grandson who was riding his bike around while we were doing all of this, and we draped the body for him to lie in honor for 3 days. And on the right is green burial. After the casket was lowered into the ground and the soil was mounded above it, we laid flowers on the grave. Okay, the next slide, please. All right. And we also, several of the people in our group are officiants or celebrants and can help a family create a celebration of life. And I will introduce my colleague Stacy McCrory now to talk to you about grief counseling resources.
Hello, thank you. I'm Stacy McCrory, and I'm going to talk about grief, which is another fun topic at a party. But like death and dying, grief is also a normal human condition, and we sort of are hoping to normalize grief a little bit more in the day-to-day. But Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, over 50 years ago, you're familiar with the 5 stages of grief? That was kind of a framework back when. And I think she was leading in her, she was a psychiatrist, she was working with people who were dying in a hospital. And in all of her sessions and interviews with clients, she came up with this sort of model for helping understand grief. And in this way, people are dying, and so they're having to come to terms with that. And hopefully they come to acceptance, but not everybody does. And so what we know now is that these aren't this isn't a linear process. So denial, we get that a lot. Like, you might be talking to someone who's dying, or even someone who lost somebody, but they're in denial about that. That's kind of the first phase, and we want to get more comfortable with folks. There's the anger, frustration, if I would have, if I did this, I wish that I did this, that's the bargaining. Depression, obvious, that's the sadness, the depression from the loss, or the anticipation of the loss. And then acceptance is implying that we've done all this and now we're ready. And I just want to say the 5 stages, not everybody goes through them, and some people go through all of them. But this is kind of old news. It's a structure, a format, and we understand it. Can we get to the next slide, please? In 2015, a man by the name of Francis Weller introduced the 5 gates of grief. And he's more in line with the conscious living and conscious dying that Lee was talking about. What we are trying to facilitate here is helping people be aware and awake through the process. And Francis helps us see that it's not just about loss, death and loss, that gives us this portal into grief. There are all kinds of different ways that we grieve and carry grief. And it's important that we kind of talk about those things. So the first one is that everything we love we will lose. That's the one we know. We know we're gonna die, we know we're gonna lose people. We also lose places that we've frequented. There's buildings where we used to sit in the park. Obvious relationships, like as we grow, right? We lose jobs that maybe were our identity. I know when my dad retired, he worked for the railroad and that was his identity. He was an executive, and when he retired, he lost so much. So the second gate are the parts of us that have not known love, our outcast parts. We call this shame. Those are the things that we weren't really accepted for. And so we were told, you're too much, you're too loud, you're too exuberant, you're too quiet. Why don't you speak up? Nobody can hear you. You don't sing very well. You don't dance very well. All of these things that were like part of our being were sort of criticized and judged, and we've exiled them. And Francis says the whole point and purpose of therapy is to welcome those exiled parts back. The third gate are the sorrows of the world. And I don't have to tell you, there's a lot of sorrow in the world, and you internalize that. Whether you are reading the headlines, watching the news, talking to people that are impacted directly, we are impacted by the wars, by the suffering, by the racism, by the homophobia, the oppression. Like, even if we are in a superior class, we are impacted by this. We walk down the street and see people that don't have enough, and that's hard. There's injustice everywhere, and that's surrounding us all the time. The fourth gate is what we expected and did not receive. So going back into ancestral times, knowing like we know how to die, we've always done this, we know how to take care of people who are dying, we also know how to grieve. But historically, we were expecting to be born into a village. We used to be born into a village with lots of eyes looking at us and welcoming us and honoring us and celebrating us, our gifts and our presence. And now we have two sets of eyes looking at us when we're born, maybe one set of eyes looking at us when we're born. And so there's a loss of community and a loss of village mind and a loss of ritual and ceremony and celebration and dance and song and all the things that we know in our bones. And this is a place that we grieve that we don't even know that we are grieving things that we don't have, but it's in us. And ancestral grief. Clearly, we come from long lineages of people and trauma and joy and beauty. But regardless of our lineage, again, whether we were oppressed or oppressive, we have that and we carry that. So all of this are ways that we carry grief, and we're sort of used to just talking about grief when we lose somebody, when somebody dies. And this is a way to keep grief warm and tend to it and know that there's grief in our life every day, but there's also beauty in our life every day if you just look out the window, right? And so Francis teaches us, one of his famous quotes, is that the work of the mature person, and I don't have two hands right now, but the work of the mature person is to carry grief in one hand and gratitude in the other, and to be stretched large by them. And so that even when we're grieving, there's beauty in that. Even when we're dying, or our loved ones are dying, there's beauty in that. There's sacred space in all of it. And it's all part of what we're doing here. And we can, again, that also famous quote, we're all just walking each other home. And that's what doulas are doing, is reminding people that we know how to do this.
Thanks, Stacy. So, I wanted to just say a couple of things. We have brochures, and each doula has business cards for you to be in touch with us. Our website, Dying in Grace, and it's on the brochure, and you'll all get a brochure, not only has the profiles of each one of the women sitting here, it also is full of YouTube videos that I made when I worked at hospice. There's about 52. One of them is Luciana, so if you missed her presentation, she's talking about dementia. Each one of those shows is about 28 minutes long. Santa Barbara is very rich in the resources that are here. And so if you wanted to learn more about things like Green Burial or the Death Cafe or whatever, there's somebody talking about it. There's somebody talking about grief and how you can use death and dance in grief, kind of what Stacy said. So we have a wide range of experiences. I also wanted to tell you, we have over here our resource table, and we'll pull the table down, and I just wanted to show you. So you're all sitting at a white table, right? Just kind of, I mean, it's pretty, they put something in there. But what we wanted to show you was an example of how we can ritualize a room. So these are just some of the sample things. So we have an electric candle going on, right? So people don't have to worry about fire hazard. We have fresh flowers with an angel, just because I like that. You might not like that. You might want a bunny. You might, whatever you want. We have several resources. 3 I wanted to mention. One that goes along with Dana's presentation is naming a healthcare director. Who's going to make decisions for you? There's a handout there on what your healthcare agent needs to know. So I'd invite you to pick that up so you know what to tell them and what they need to know about you. Second one is a list of local grief resources. Hospices Santa Barbara, VNA. There's a number of free resources in town. Currently, there's a waiting list at both of these organizations. And so there's a national grief program that's a little more immediate. It's also free. It's 6 time limited, so it's only 6 weeks. It's a great place to get started so that you could start talking about your grief while you're waiting to get on the services of the other things. And this grief service is available for everybody. Oh yeah, change the slide, sorry.
Can I add one more? I don't think it's on the resource list. I'll put these on the table up front. I also host a grief circle at the beach on the second Sunday of the month for free.
Right, so there's a Waves of Grief, and that's part of the movement. So we have some information. We have a sign-in thing if you want to have a one-on-one with us too. And the one thing I did want to say, doulas are a movement. There are doulas all over the country. If you have a loved one that needs a doula but they don't live here in Santa Barbara, we can help you find doulas. We're all part of a network of doulas. So I was chatting with people at my table. Their daughter found a doula in Ohio. The thing I want to say that's unique about us is because we are blessed and retired. Some of us are not retired. We have some youngins that are working, but the people like me, we're retired. We decided we wanted to offer this service in the community as volunteers. We don't charge for what we do. And we do it because we don't want to have people not get what they need because they're short on cash for the cost of caregiving and that kind of thing. So it's our love offering to our community. And if you want to give us a love offering back, if we've done a good job, we'll accept that, but it's not a have to. So that's what I want to tell you. Now we have time for Q&A. Yes?
So there's a whole subject that isn't normally covered, and that is, so I have a 96-year-old mom, and she's told me several times that aside from all of the documentation which has been done and all of that kind of stuff, she's ready. Our family's not large. She doesn't feel like she has lots of reason to live. And she's not there yet, but I've seen times where she's been close. Some medical things have come up. And so the notion of, I won't call it assisted suicide, but helping someone to actually let go, that whole issue, which is sort of taboo in a way, but love some thoughts about that subject.
Okay, I'll make it brief because, so the issue is someone who's older, and they're looking at what's the purpose of me being here, I'm ready to go.
Also, does not have a terminal.
And has no illness, nothing that would allow them to get on hospice, to do medical aid in dying, which is another whole topic that we could do a whole presentation about. But, you know, I understand, and I will say this, part of that lack of purpose has a lot to do with our culture and how we honor or don't honor the wisdom of our elders. So one piece, when I get people like this, is to talk to them about what gives you purpose now, and that's where the Legacy and Life Review can help give people a sense of purpose. I've talked to a couple of people about that. That's not to say that we can't honor their wishes. We as doulas could do nothing because it's not legal in this country. I am aware that there is a website called Exit International. There are people that want to leave, and people have left the country to do that because it is legal in other places. And for me, I don't want to disrespect the despair that people might be feeling, but I think when I talk with people about the power of the life that they've lived and the purpose of what they can offer, kind of like what Lee was saying, getting engaged in an ethical will, looking at the life you've had, having people give you meaningful experiences, that gives people a little more meaning. So it's a fine line, and I've heard this before, and
Also, you just said something. People who are feeling despair. She actually doesn't seem to feel despair. She just feels like ready, but legally, there's no mechanism.
Well, people for years have voluntarily stopped eating and drinking, and that's the legal way you can do it. You just say, I'm done. And that's been going on for a very, very long time. So you have to make a choice. The family has to be on board. That's a legal way you can end your life. You stop eating, you stop drinking. We can talk more about that afterwards. Other questions? I want to make sure we have time. Yes, ma'am.
Some of us may have signed up with Neptune Society some time ago, which was not inexpensive. Do you happen to know if there's any way to transfer that to an ecological burial, or?
So can you have the disposition of your body that you've agreed to with Neptune, can that be transferred to a green burial? I don't know the answer. I don't know if any of the doulas know the answer. What I would do is talk to Neptune. I have to believe, because they're international, it probably costs you a little more money, my guess is. And by the way, in Santa Barbara County, there is nowhere in our county that you can, at this moment, do a green burial. There's some of us that are working actively. There are some places. There's one we visited in Creston, which is up in Slough. It's like an old cowboy thing. Yeah, Lee.
Unless you're Jewish or unless you're Muslim, then you would have green burial.
Yeah, okay, well that, your religious stuff. And by the way, you can't get buried in Santa Barbara over the weekend, just in case you die on a Friday, just know that. You've got to be on ice for a few days, so there you go. There was another question here, and then I'll come to you. Yes, ma'am.
In discussing green burial, you didn't mention donating your body to a medical facility like UCLA, where after they submit the body to medical students, you become the medical student's first patient. The body is cremated and disposed of at sea. You didn't mention that.
Well, I'm not so sure that that's, we didn't mention that piece of it, and I'm not so sure that may be UCLA standards. I also am aware that some places return the cremains to the family, so it really depends. And I think particularly with bodies, they're not using cremation so much. In California, we do a thing, it's expensive, but it's called aquamation, done with the power of water, which seems to be less environmentally damaging, because cremation itself uses a lot of energy. It's less than being in the ground, but you know, it's on a continuum. Donating your body to science is something that you want to get hooked up in advance. That's another reason to do your advanced healthcare planning and put that in there, and we can help you get that all hooked up. It is not something that gets decided once you die. You have to make those wishes known beforehand. You have to put that in writing ahead of time. Other questions? Yeah, there was somebody over here. You had a question. Yeah.
I thought cremation and burial at sea was green. I guess it isn't.
Well, cremation is not green. It's greener than in the ground, but it's not green. Burial at sea, depending on how you do it, can be green. But if you get buried in a box, I mean, there's lots of different things, and you know, more and more there's innovative things. So you may remember the actor Luke Perry, who was on 90120 or whatever that zip code is. When he died, and it was sudden, but he had made plans, he got buried in a mushroom shroud, put into the ground, and things grew up around him. So, you know, now it might not be your thing. You know, some people get made into compost, and what you can do with your cremains now is crazy. You could be jewelry, you could be a firework, you can be all kinds of things. Lee.
So burial at sea is green, and you're wrapped in sailcloth, and they put river stones in with that, and they take you 6 miles from the shore, and you are buried at sea at minimum of 600 feet.
Who is
So
they?
you're in federal waters. Businesses that ships essentially, you know, that do that, and funeral homes that support that.
Yeah, if that's something you want to do, but know that you're not in a coffin getting buried at sea.
And the mulching of bodies is legal in California. I didn't know this, but you can't. It won't be done. It won't be able to be done legally until 2027.
So, you know, you could be your own future garden, who knows? So, other questions? There was somewhat, yeah, Charlene, and then I'll come to you, and then you.
Is there a typical amount of time, Arlene, that you guys spend with the family, or is it so individual?
It's case by case. So, I will say that one of my clients, also my friend, is 93. She's healthy, she lives in independent living, and we've been working on her plans for a while. We started with her advanced healthcare directive. We had to advocate with her doctor to get the pulse, because she doesn't have, she's a 2-time cancer survivor, but she's perfectly healthy now. But she lives alone. And so I said to our doctor, get her a pulse, because she lives in a senior community. If something happens, she does not want to be resuscitated. So I'm still working with her and her daughter. We're planning her memorial. She picked out these songs that she wants. I mean, we're making an elaborate thing. And you know, if you like a good party, it's your, you know, it's your last party. And also your vigiling thing. We had another doula who moved to Boise, Idaho, and at her vigil plan, you know, people were like, I want people to meditate before they come and be really sacred and all that. And she said, you know what I want? I want a chocolate fondue machine and a bottle of scotch, and I want people to tell jokes. Like, that's what I want when I'm dying, because I'm happy about it. So you create your own last party, whatever that is for you. And your memorial is that too. Mine's going to be a Broadway theme. I would have the picture. I want it to be a playbill. I have the songs picked out. I'm thinking about having people come in like they did in The Lion King, you know, and have to do Sing Circle of Life. Who knows? I'm having fun planning this. My husband is like holding his head. I want my program to be a playbill. So anyway, that's me. I'm thinking about it. There was a question. I said you and then you. So yes, sir.
As you're speaking end of life choices, correct me if I'm wrong. I read somewhere not too long ago that in the state of California, approximately 20% select funerals embalming, 80% or close to 80% are going for cremation, and the answer to why was mostly costs to the family. Funerals were thousands and thousands of dollars. Cremation was like $1,200 to $1,500.
I think cremation has really taken off, and especially in the South, which has a lot more traditional, you know, belief systems and all that. And The other thing that in that change, and I don't know those statistics, but it seems right to me, so I'm sure whatever you read is accurate. The other thing that's changing, when I was a kid, somebody died, they got laid out in a funeral home, they got buried within a couple of days, right? It was like boom, boom, boom. And much more now, and I think the pandemic did some of this, but I think we were just moving much more. The family takes care of the body, they have a cremation or they do what they do. And then there's a celebration of life later, when the family can get together, when you can organize things. So, you know, it gives you more time to plan and create what you want, that type of thing. So we're changing, and as Stacy talked about, we as doulas are trying to bring ritual in for grieving, for saying goodbye, blessing of the body, because we've lost our rituals. Nobody wears black anymore. We don't have too many rituals to tell us that someone is grieving. So we're trying to, you know, ritualize that and mark the days and that type of thing. I forget who I talked to who said today was their mother's, the death of their, my friend this morning. It's my friend who's 85 said today's my mother's birthday. Her mother would have been like 130 or something, but she's gonna light a candle today. She's 85, she misses her mother today. There's a marking of the grief that we've stopped doing. We've forgotten how to do that. You had a question.
I was just going to ask, is there any one place where you can get all these different documents that need to be filled out?
Well, they're not all, well, there's lots of different documents that you want to get done. You talk to your doctor for the post, Advanced Healthcare Directive, Hospice of Santa Barbara, we have them. So there's a lot of different things. We have some lists of the stuff you should get together. Doulas advocate creating like a death file, putting all your, you know, who should I call? And in fact, we have a giveaway. When she's ready, we have a giveaway of a little notebook. You can buy them online to just put your passwords and your Medicare number and all that stuff, so that your family has one place to go and they have all the information they need, your Social Security, etc. So
there's just to answer, Sansom has a service. I just got contacted by them. It's run by, it's not, it's an affiliate of Sansom called Iris, and they help you with all this.
Well, there's lots of people that will help you. There's lots of stuff out there. There's also a thing online called a knock box, next of kin box, and it's for a price, and it's got pre-labeled files. I've heard people just get the file folders. There's lots of lists around. I don't care what you do, just start. Do some. If you're sitting here today and you do not have an advanced health care directive, please come talk to us. That's the place to start. And if your family doesn't have it, and like Dana said, I used to go out to UCSB and the kids would look at me, I'm like, yeah, I know, you're 19 and you don't think you're gonna die. But how many of you know somebody younger who died in a car accident? You know, those kinds of things, it happens. So our awareness and our normalization of death as part of the living process is really our ultimate goal, to start to get comfortable, to have these conversations. It's a gift you give to yourself and your family to normalize this. And I can't, and involving children is really also a part of it. They know, they're not too young to not know. I mean, there's ways you can tell them, but involve your children in all these decisions. Let them be a part of the process too, all of them. Stacey, you have something you want to say?
Put a cherry on that, because I know it's a hard conversation to go home and say to your kids, like, let's talk about my death, what we want when I die. But it's such a gift. If you have a sibling and you are not in agreement about what happens to your parent when they die, please help them.
Yeah.
And P.S., make sure you and your sibling agree with what your parent wants, you know, because they might have one opinion that's different. So the conversation, and I'd say the death deck, there's all kinds of resources we have, and that's something that we doulas do too. We have all kinds of resources in this community to get you hooked up for caregivers. We know a lot of people. We know Luciana. You got a problem with that, we'll send you over there. We know Morticia. We know lots of, not everyone, but lots of people in this field. How are we doing on time?
We're good. 5 more minutes.
Okay, so a couple more questions here, and then Charlene.
I actually have a comment to make about the polls, because I just, my mom passed away last year, and when I had to call 911 for them to come to the house, they knew that my mom was dying, but they said, you know, we're gonna have to take her to the hospital. And I said, well, here's her, you know, DNR or pulse, whatever you wanna call it. And the sheriff's deputy looked at it and he said, you know that this isn't updated and we really can't use this, but what we're going to do is we're gonna ask her questions and you can translate for her. Well, she had suddenly lost her ability to speak or understand what anybody was saying. And I was feeling kind of stuck because she had told me 1,000,000 times, I don't want to be rescued. And she's 93, and she didn't have a particular outward illness, but she was old. And she wanted to go, and she'd been saying this for a while. And so I said, well, why isn't this good? Why isn't this valid? Why can't it speak for her that she does not want to be rescued? She would rather just lay here and die. And they said, well, we hate to say this, but a lot of people think just because you have it signed once that it's good. But he said it has to be updated. He said this one's too old. So that's a lot of people think you sign this thing once and your doctor signs off and it's done, but it's not. You need to update it more often.
That's not true.
You didn't say that he said mine was 5.
I'm not sure, so first off, I'm sorry. I'm sorry you had this experience.
Yeah.
It's awkward, you thought you had everything. I am not aware of, we do encourage people, and you heard Dana talk about updating your advanced healthcare directives, and as things change in your body, you know, if you're 45 and you're feeling great, you probably want everything done. When COVID hit, I said to my husband, do not put me on a ventilator. If I get this, do not. I don't, let's write that in. I don't want that. So, you know, things change. My understanding is it's valid when it's dated. But what it speaks to me, is the education of the EMTs and the first responders, so that they're aware. And we can check. I also am a first responder. I'm a chaplain for the fire department. So I'm going to go back and find out what they tell them. Dana, are you aware of anything? I have never heard that. I do know that they get in the override. Their job is to save. It's why your doctor won't always give you a pulse. It's why your doctor won't always, because death is the enemy if you're a doctor or a medic. But it's not. It's not the enemy.
I've had one for my client rejected at the hospital by the doctors. They
Well,
said it was
you
too
know,
old.
I don't want to, that could be another thing, what's wrong with our healthcare system? And I so appreciate the people that work the front lines, but as we know, our system is not always serving us the way it can. So it's education and feedback to get that. And I just want to say two things in closing. One, I want to thank you for your attention. I know it's an uncomfortable situation sometimes to talk about. It brings things up. We're here to support that. We're so glad you're here. The doulas have our brochures and their cards, so if you've made a relationship with the doula at your table, get her card. We'll have our cards here. And the last thing I want to say is dying in grace. Well, how do you achieve dying in grace? You live each day in grace. Thanks so much.
Oh my goodness. You know, what a tough subject to talk about, and that's one of the reasons I'm so glad everybody came out today, because it's never easy to talk about death and dying, and I think Arlene and the team have really made it much more accessible to talk about it. So, one thing I picked up there were many things that I made notes on, as you can see by my scribbles, but one thing that I really thought was poignant was they offer individual support based on physical, mental, social, emotional, and cultural needs. They're there to listen and help you grieve and go through the process. I thought it was an amazing presentation. And learned so much. So yes, give me that. So for those of you who've been here before, you know that I always give away 2 $25 gift cards for just showing up. So I really appreciate it. And then the Diane and Grace gals brought a booklet that we're going to give away. It's an end-of-life planner. And as Arlene said, you can buy these on Amazon. They're throughout. You can download one. You can get them from various organizations. But this is a really great thing. It has so many, especially if you die unexpectedly. It has everything in here that your loved ones will need. Bank accounts, passwords, wishes. Does it have the wishes in it?
Doesn't have the 5 wishes,
So-
but it tells you where you can get it. And you can customize it. It's got a lot of blank pages for you to write down what you want.
So, Arlene, do you want to come up and do some drawing for me?
So those of you who paid me off earlier, I'll be pulling it down.
Hang on 1 second. Joan A.
I think it's me.
Are you Joan A?
Yeah.
Okay then. Yeah. Is your question about the doulas?
I didn't know where to get them right here.
We have them and you can get, you can get my cares. We have some with us, Hospice of Santa Barbara, just talk to us, okay. Next one. And the lucky winner is Eleanor Fink. There you go.
Thank you, Eleanor. Okay, and for the booklet, one more drawing.
Dana, why don't you come up and pick one? I've got my payoffs, it's your turn. Daniel.
Daniel.
Okay.
Once again, thank you from the bottom of my heart for coming out today. Thank you to the Doulas and Diane and Grace organization. I thought it was a tremendous seminar. Thank you to Luciana for being my videographer. And next month we're having Rachel. She's a fitness and nutrition expert. Little lighter subject. Hope to see you all here. And the month after that, like I said, is in May, is a shredding event to get rid of all your old paperwork. So thank you again. Have a great day. Thank you. Oh, one more thing. Don't forget to turn out your surveys, and I'll collect them at the door.